Welcome back to the County News Podcast. I'm Nicole Weissman.
And I'm Charlie Ban.
And this is our first episode back after our 2024 annual conference. Charlie, what was the highlight for you?
Honestly, just seeing members face to face. I talked to a lot of county officials on the phone. I email with them a lot throughout the year, but nothing beats actually looking them in the eye, talking about their issues, talking about their solutions, and bringing in people off the street to talk, bring into a conversation. It's nothing beats that environment.
Totally agree, though I'm not just saying this to suck up to the County News team. The highlight for me was we hear from folks all the time, I can't be everywhere at the same time. There were, concurrent sessions. I wish I could have attended. The County News coverage from day one through the end of the conference is just fantastic. Catching up on it has been a real highlight for me. So thanks to you and the County News team. And if you were not with us for the 2024 annual conference, definitely check it all out at NACo.org. Moving on to our conversation today, because the other big thing that happened at the annual conference is, of course, we brought in a new NACo president, President James Gore from Sonoma County, California, and you've had the opportunity to get to know him pretty well. He's a really brilliant, energetic guy. He says service is magic. So tell us a little bit about what's important to President Gore and what you took away from this interview with him.
The best way to describe President Gore's approach to leadership is back in 2017 when he took on the chairmanship of the NACo President County Advisories Board. He was doing so to learn about how he could help Sonoma County bolster its sustainability, water management, and energy development initiatives. But a few weeks into it, Sonoma County suffered a series of terrible fires that forced him to take action in a way that he didn't expect at the time. And in the process, he helped Sonoma County take a more proactive approach to its disaster preparedness and recovery. That paid dividends pretty soon after because they've suffered more fires and more floods as a result. But in the process, he's helped Sonoma County residents not fear challenges, but prepare for them, anticipate what's going to happen, and really work in and do their muscle memory how you respond when there's a disaster. And it's a psychological shift that's mirrored his approach to being a more proactive leader in county government.
And you'll hear him talk about that in this interview, as well as a broad presidential spotlight called We the counties, we the leaders, we the future. So much there that we'll get to explore with him over the course of the year. Ultimately, President Gore is a brilliant leader. He says the world is run by those who show up, so service-minded, as are so many of our members. So hopefully this discussion will excite everyone else as much as it did you and I.
What got you into county government?
I have always just been driven to make things better. Mm-hmm. I mean, at a basic level, when I was 10, my mom and my grandma sat me down and said, "We want you to do good things in this world, right? We believe in you and you can do this." And I was just a 10-year-old. And
you grew up in Sonoma County, right?
I did. I grew up in Sonoma County. I grew up in the hills. I had a great youth and in the ag lands, and then sometimes in suburbia. We moved around quite a bit. But I grew up in a beautiful place, and I just can't get involved in something and not try to help improve it, right? It's kind of something, and if that means I need to stay out of the way, I'm okay with that too, right? So life kind of led me to it. The larger story is I left and went to college, wasn't finding really the purpose I was looking for in what I was studying, even though it was great.
What were you studying?
I was studying agriculture business. Okay. But and so I was thinking I was going to go into the wine business. Mm-hmm. But it really, the production side of it, it didn't have the it factor that just got me fired up. And so I was always searching for that. And I found it through public service. I found it through this purpose-driven life, which is, whether it's at 8 a.m. in the morning and you're working on water issues, at 10 a.m. and you're back to homeless encampments, at noon you're moving over towards broadband, at 4 p.m. maybe you're transitioning back over into law and safety and jail management. I mean, the vast array of those things really, and just looking at them from a lens of what's going on, what's not working, what is working, how can we do better? It's just something that continues to drive me. So, long story short is that I went to college, then I went to the Peace Corps. Mm-hmm. When I got back from the Peace Corps, I moved to Washington, D.C. with my wife.
Where'd you go for the
I was in
Peace Corps?
Bolivia, South America.
Okay.
I was an agriculture and natural resource volunteer.
How long did you spend
And
down there?
I spent 2 years and 3 months. 3 months of training, and then you swear in as a volunteer. And my wife and I, my girlfriend at the time, I had to go all the way to Bolivia to find a blonde Texan. My wife is just an amazing partner, mother, and an amazing businesswoman. They say, they have this quote, which is, it's the toughest job you'll ever love, right? And it is. I mean, you have to go through your mood swings that are mental health management. I mean, you're alone, you're a stranger in a strange place. Sometimes you're depressed, sometimes you're anxious, sometimes you're excited, but it's life on the edge. So Peace Corps, then DC, and in DC I kind of had 2 different careers. For about 4 years I worked and represented wine industry and ag on international affairs, and then and other industries. But then I worked underneath the Secretary of Agriculture, and was a presidential appointee in the Obama administration, and I did amazing work around persistent poverty areas around the U.S. I got to see and work in places like the colonias on the U.S.-Mexico border. I speak fluent Spanish and Italian. I spent a ton of time in the Deep South, learning and figuring out how our programs could go into there. Appalachia, Rust Belt, cities that were hollowed out, like agriculture and in small lots in Detroit, tribal lands around the country. So, I had this amazing ability, and I finished by being the Assistant Chief of Natural Resources, Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS, around the country. But then it was time to go home. My daughter was 1.5, and my wife, Elizabeth, and I were ready to not move back, but move forward by, planting our roots firmly in Northern California. And 5 months after I got home, the spot opened up, and it was a jungle primary. And I knocked on 40,000+ doors with the team. Had signs everywhere. Went from like 3% name ID to 70% in 6 months, and we slayed it. Was elected in 2014. Started in 2015, and so I am in my 10th year on the board. I'm in my 3rd term.
Wow. What was the moment when you're like, okay, was it when you decided I got to go for this? I've got it. This is where I can self-actualize the person that I started becoming at age 10.
The first thing is that I firmly believe that it's not only okay, but it's great if you can find that magic where you like what you're doing and you're doing good for the world, whether that's people, systems, natural resources, whatever that is. And so I was just kind of seeking that out, but I kind of feel like I was like on the hunt, like sniffing around, like for that purpose. And so I'd catch a little bit of it here. I would, I'd have a job, and I would just, be like, maybe I need to join that nonprofit board. So I was always like searching for it. And I would say legitimately when I was, I was always a happen chance leader because I'd always raise my hand, and therefore I would always get involved, and and then when I was in my late 20s and early 30s, I decided that it wasn't happen chance anymore, that this was something I was going to decide to do. Public service was my mission, and I was going to attack it, right? And so everything from then has, like, once you put your mind to work and you see, even as imperfect as it is, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
You can't go back.
I can't go back once you see the world. I mean, sure, in one way we're fixers. It's like potholes, permits, all these other things. But then you see, like, you see the lack of common sense on so many issues, and it's because the resources aren't there to manage everything perfectly. We live in an imperfect place, and a lot of people like to point that out all the time and have the county fix everything, right? And so you do the best you can. You have to prioritize. Mm-hmm. But I'm a big believer. My mantra is GSD, get stuff done, or AKA get shit done, mm-hmm. right? And that defines me way more than, like, I could care less if the president of NACo or the president of the California counties is on my obit or on my resume. It's more what we do while we're in these positions.
Yeah.
How do we leverage the members to kick butt, whether they're in Montana or Florida or South Carolina or Nebraska or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I'm just a big believer in the we movement, right? And so part of what I'm looking at this year and is not just like the initiatives and the other things, but how do I get the most people engaged?
Yeah.
I have young kids. I don't plan to be on the road for 300 days a year as the NACo president.
Yeah.
I plan to prioritize. I plan to have the executive board rally as a team and say who's going where, how are we doing this, what do those states need from us. So I'm excited.
Your kids. That's actually, given that we just got out of National County Government Month. What do they know about county government?
Well, I would say the one thing that I really love is that my kids know that it not just their dad, but it's expected to be good stewards in this world. Mm-hmm. That's our, the family thing that we need to impart is that, service is magic. This world needs more service. Instead of people talking about what's wrong or hoping somebody does it or hoping there's a government program that creates it, we need a bunch of people just to stand up and take action. Mm-hmm. Instead of driving through the intersection and seeing the car broke down and saying, I hope somebody helps that person or the police show up, you got to pull over and push them through the intersection. Yeah. And then get back in your car and go do something else. And that to me, that level of service that my family sees is, I think, a beautiful thing. My kids know that I manage parks and I help with homeless encampments, and I'm somebody who's in charge of managing like the crazy things they see, which is great because I want them to know that they have their hands on the future.
And there is a chance, there is a way to help. There are opportunities to be that person.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll be taking my daughter to school and she'll say, you know what, we really need a crosswalk from my school to across the street. It's dangerous here. Mm-hmm. I say, well, this is a city, so well, it's not my jurisdiction, let's call the mayor. Yeah. And so I pick up the phone and I call the mayor. And the funny thing is some people could say that's because you have access and you have networks and other things, but it's amazing how many people do not just try. Yeah. Do not just raise their voices.
They look for a reason not to try.
Yeah. Oh, the system's not working. Well, get up, rise up. They say the world is run by those who show up. Yeah. Right. So my kids, I love that they see that. I want my kids to know that it's that the best things in the world are the things that also are the hardest. The easy way out is not a way to live life. If you see something that's not working, you got to get involved. And once you get involved, you can't be one-dimensional. You have to be willing to challenge your beliefs. I say that my biggest pet peeve at this point, 10 years in, is strongly held, lightly informed opinions. People who are really fired up, and not that they don't know what they're talking about, but they close themselves off from looking at something from others' perspectives, challenging that one-dimensional view of life.
Yeah, never actually working their way through the problem. Just kind of.
I always say, you sure are fired up. You want to come in? Water's cold, choppy, dangerous, right? Bring it, but don't be that fired up if you're not gonna be willing to step up.
Speaking of that, obviously Sonoma County is still recovering. How, as an elected official during that disaster, how did that play out for you as one of the 5 supervisors?
In 2017, almost 7 years ago now, our community and my district were decimated. And while that was a horrible event, there's been I've never done such meaningful, purpose-driven work. I knew exactly what I needed to do. It wasn't about getting up and giving speeches. It was about delivering for people who were in a horrible situation. Mm-hmm. And whether that meant changing laws or negotiating with insurance companies or holding forums for them to raise their voices or organizing not just them, but then the other folks who hadn't burned but were in dangerous places into groups to do all these preparedness exercises, building up our Office of Emergency Management from a kind of a pro forma office into a top in the country, not just in the state. Proactively educating people on the risks, asking them to take ownership, that they are the key to being ready and being prepared. But once they're prepared, they don't have to be fearful.
Yeah.
We don't have to scare them all the time. Once you know what your plan is for you and your family, every time you smell smoke in the air, you don't have to flee.
Yeah,
You do if it's a red flag warning. So educating people on what these things are. I mean, that was a whole 4 years worth of work, right? And I saw so much need in other communities, and I really didn't want other communities to wait until it was their turn. I wanted to be a part of saying, wake up others, and stay awake,
Yeah.
right? Don't live in complacency. So for me, that was a magical time. And it was it was difficult. It was painful. The burden of it, the grief that was in the community, the mental health issues, the fear, the rebuild, the costs, the money, all these other things were swarming. But really for me was a time to deliver locally and then to share those lessons with my fellow counties. Then to start with NACo, I was ironically the chair of the Resilient Counties when that fire burned my area. And I joined that committee mostly focusing on sustainability and water management and energy development and things like that. And I took and swung it completely into emergency management. And then we started to, one of my first big things with NACo was, as a Resilient Counties chair, is traveling with President Roy Brooks and a bunch of others of the executive leaders. And we went and did disaster learning lessons and created this whole disaster portfolio that's risen to one of the top in NACo. And FEMA, and I joined the FEMA National Advisory Council, and I did that. So it's just all been this drive to not be afraid of the future, but embrace it and
Prepare
become
for it.
resilient.
Yeah.
Which is a state of being. It's not a midpoint to achieve.
It's not an act. Yeah.
So it's still crazy. We've had 9 federally declared disasters, I think, in 7 years. So a lot of those, though, is that cycle of drought, fire, flood.
Yeah.
Drought, fire, flood. So the drought permeated all that time. The mega fires, the 5 that we've had, were interspersed.
Yeah, interspersed.
With 3 significant floods, and now we've finally had 2 years where we've had steady good rains that are evened out, as opposed to just these what we call weather whiplash, these climate extremes. So I feel like that's all about the future, right? I think that's something we can rally around. Like I told you, we had, the real defining aspect of that, I call it the tale of 2 fires, because in 2017 and in 2019, like after 2017, it was like, we got caught on our heels. Let's get on our toes. Let's rally. I became the chair of the board. I was like, we need a shock and awe transformation. We did a recovery and resiliency plan. We had like 200 things that we needed to implement. Top 10 list of all these different things, getting on our toes. And by the time that next fire came, that was a very, very similar event. We were ready. We had the wind conditions. We had our emergency operations center was not a bunker. It was a nexus of information and energy. We evacuated 40% of our population, almost 250,000 people. Think about how hard and disruptive that is. But that allowed the emergency responders, instead of evacuating people in the moment and saving animals and trying to do that, is to hold the line, even as these embers flew, these rained fire on these places. They were able to stop it with 200 or 300 homes instead of letting it become 3,000 to 10,000.
Yeah.
And so to have been part of not just a rebuilding, but then a process that really was all hands on deck. We had the entire armada of support from other counties and the California system. I mean, it's amazing to see it work right too.
And it's really cool to hear how Cal Fire works too. Yeah.
And to be a part of it and know that, to be a leader in those moments, you have to be a follower. You have to empower other leaders, community leaders, right? Folks in your peers and your counterparts. There has to be family. I was like saying in Hawaii, ohana. I'm really not focused on a presidential initiative, as people are talking to me. I'm focused on really honoring the work that we do and the work that we need to do. In the fact that, as I love, in a poem that I read years ago, is the quote of, "We are the ones we've been waiting for." There's nobody else that's going to come and take care of these issues. The states aren't going to fix it for us. The feds aren't going to fix it for us. We are the ones in the trenches. We are in many ways defending democracy through delivery, right? We are dealing with mental health crises in our jails, homeless encampments. We're taking on extreme weather events. They say all disasters start local and end local. Well, I would expand that to say, that's really the delivery system of this country. Counties, by and large, are if we look around, there's differences around, but as members of the intergovernmental partnership between the federal, the state, tribes, and counties, counties are often treated by states or the Fed as a delivery mechanism, a simple delivery mechanism, as opposed to the solution space. And so for me as the president of NACo, that is my biggest goal, is to make sure that we are owning our place by not asking for it and demanding it, but by sitting at those tables and forcing our ways into the room so that we are the ones driving those solutions. So a couple things that are real key for me as I move into this. Number one is that I'll swear in July, and we have a presidential election right around the corner. And it for sure will be another very divisive presidential election. So our goal is to bring people back together and remind each other that we're doing the work on the ground, and that we don't have to choose in the county world to find every or to over-focus on every wedge issue that divides us in this country, right? We are the ones who get it done on the ground each and every day. So brass tacks, we're the ones who have to do that. So part of that is, that's why also we're gonna host an amazing mobile conference in Sonoma County in December, is to bring everybody back together post-election, see where we're at, have it be project focused. And then the great thing is that over the course of this next year, we really will have the annual will be in Philadelphia when I finish, and that's going to really be the kickoff of what's called the United States semi-sesquicentennial, which is the 250th anniversary of this country. So I think as much as we talk about the divisiveness, the fact that we are not just talking about agreeing as county supervisors, we are the ones who create solutions because we have to. We can't abstain, we can't do other things. I think it's a real beautiful time for us to rise up. A real beautiful time for us not to just do county government month or green light on veterans and things like these initiatives that we do, but to really own that we are the future. We are the future, and we're the ones we've been waiting for. So I really look forward to focusing on us, that we're the ones who are delivering in the trenches, but yet we have to look up and be futuristic, because we have to realize that AI is going to completely change the workspace. It's completely changing how we're going to have staffing. How many people do we have who are going to be doing data management these days, which is a big thing, and how much of that is going to be taken care of? How do we move people over into the soft skills world? People management and the things that should not be AI bots. Like if you go into a human services department, you stare at a screen and it tries to line you up for a program. So I think that we're in a hugely transformational time. The digital revolution, the transition of the baby boomers, the dominant generation, into the millennials and then some. And then if you look more than that, climate extremes. We are just in very chaotic times that change relentlessly. And so instead of just trying to catch up with the chaos, we got to really decide what we need to do and do it.
That was my conversation with President Gore. I'd like to thank him for sharing his experiences with us.
It was a great conversation, and actually we're just in the midst now of putting together our editorial calendar for next year and planning out the conversations that you'll be having on the County News Podcast in 2025. So if you'd like to hear more conversations like this one, or if there are other county leaders that come to mind to you as folks Charlie should be talking to, send us an email. We would love to hear from you. Also upcoming at NACo, the Joint Board of Directors, Large Urban County Caucus, and Rural Action Caucus Symposium, taking place December 4th through the 7th in President Gore's home county of Sonoma County, California. If that event is interesting to you, you can find more about that at naco.org. And that's all for now. We'll catch you on the next episode.
See you later.